This episode of the Fantasy Underdogs podcast is brought to you by betonline.ag. If you're into sports betting, BetOnline is where you should go to win money today. Whether it's live bets during games or futures for who you think will win the championship, BetOnline has the latest odds, news, and information for all your online sports betting needs. Visit the website today or use your mobile device to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So before the next big game, head on over to BetOnline and start playing today. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. And now, the Fantasy Underdogs podcast. Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of the Fantasy Underdogs podcast, brought to you by the Believe Podcast Network and also betonline.ag. Make sure to go to betonline.ag and get your 50% off sign-up bonus today. What's up, everybody? What's up?
How we doing?
I'm good. Chip, how are you doing today? Did you have a rough night last night?
We do what we do. Mr. L. Bushman, the great L. Bushman. No, had a great draft we're going to talk about on the show, so I won't give that away, but got a chance to see some old friends and even talk to Guy into making maybe a good choice at the first pick overall.
That's very true. You had a very good, how do I say this, persuasive don't want to say drunken, but you were like persuasiveness was just like on point last night during the draft that I was in. So yeah, I congratulate you.
It was more, I put him in a trance, and
yeah, you did.
Took over for 5 seconds.
You did. So it was good. We've got a jam-packed show tonight. Hope everybody was having a good night in the comments that joins us tonight for your fantasy football questions. Make sure to join us and ask them some questions about your upcoming drafts. I did one last night. I know everybody's got locked and loaded drafts coming this weekend. Chip, I know you've got one on what, Sunday?
Next weekend.
The number one pick in the draft. So good luck with that.
Yes, very much so. Still deciding maybe-ish. I don't know.
I wanted everybody's opinion on this. Would you trade out of the number one spot or keep it if you had the number one spot?
Honestly, this year I might trade out.
Yeah,
okay.
I'd agree with that.
Any other year, I feel like maybe not, but this year I think there's a lot of uncertainty and I think I would trade back a little bit.
Okay.
So what is everybody thinking? I talked, and this was one of the guys I talked about last night with the number one pick. I was telling him about how I kind of feel eerie about Christian McCaffrey. We all know bad knee injuries. Dalvin Cook is a guy who came back. It seems like almost stronger after he came back. But do you guys think the chance of him re-injuring himself is higher, or what do you think? You think he's going to be around for a whole season?
I mean, I don't know. I think it's injury and concern over that, because I think most people who do have serious injuries end up having minor things here and there if it's not another serious injury down the line. But I would also just be aware of how this offense has transformed since he's been gone, right? Because now you've added some receivers, you have a new quarterback under center. So there's a lot of changes to that offense. Not saying he's not going to be a huge piece of it, because he is, especially if he comes back the same or potentially better, like you mentioned, Dalvin Cook, but there are some other pieces at play that weren't necessarily there prior to him getting injured. It feels a little more of a balanced offense than it was in previous seasons, just because he really, really was that entire offense and it just centered around him. And now it feels like there's a little more to work with. I don't want to say a ton, because we know they're still rebuilding, they're still working up, but yeah, I would just be aware of how that offense has changed. But I think anytime dealing with injury, kind of a concern.
I don't trust anything on that team at all.
Okay.
I don't trust anything whatsoever on that team. Like, they went from you did a lateral QB switch. You went from Teddy Bridgewater and you brought over Sam Darnold, which to me, that's not much of an upgrade at all. It's just like, okay, we brought in somebody that's just as good as the last guy that we had, and if not, maybe worse. Like I just, and the whole injury thing concerns me still with CMC. That's why if I ever got the number 1 draft pick, he got picked 3rd last night in the draft I was in.
Yeah.
Kamara came first, Cook was second, and then CMC. Even the guy that picked Chad, who picked 3rd, was still kind of iffy about taking CMC. He was like on the fence about it. He's like maybe I should take him or maybe I shouldn't, but he's like, screw it, I'll just take CMC, and he took it. I have in the back of my mind, I'm like, he could get injured, and then you're screwed because Mike Davis isn't there anymore.
Yep.
He's now in Atlanta, and Mike Davis was a serviceable back when CMC was hurt. So and the receiving core is like the only bright spot. Robbie Anderson is a bright spot in that offense, but other than that, I'm passing, man. I'm passing on everything.
Terrence Marshall Jr. has looked good in preseason for them, and he's gotten a lot of snaps, and he's going to be a wide receiver, I think. Maybe you look at towards the end of the draft, but Chuba Hubbard has been the real deal Holyfield. They drafted a guy to come in and play behind McCaffrey, who's looked good in preseason. So I don't know. We'll see.
I'm just staying away from that team altogether.
Jordy, is McCaffrey gonna make it the whole year? Should I change my pick at the top, or what do you think?
I'm staying away from CMC too. That's kind of why I would go like back to the earlier question, why I would trade back, just because I'm not 100% comfortable with CMC, like injury and with the changes on offense. Also, I'm not sold with Kamara either, just because the Saints offense is a hot mess as well right now. And I know they're going to totally rely on him, but you don't really know what's going to come out of that. So it feels very iffy. I feel like normally, especially last year where you had CMC or Saquon at number 1 and it felt so solidified. This year, you don't get that feeling. So I don't know. I honestly would feel more comfortable going Dalvin Cook number 1 overall than CMC or Kamara.
I mean, pre-show we saw Jameis Winston in his ever-changing stretching and conditioning drills. So that's just
windmill.
I don't know though. Dalvin Cook,
quick.
If you're in, I guess depending on scoring, if you're PPR, I think you got Madison there who is put in for those downs, and I think that's another reason why CMC and Kamara could both have good years. But injuries are part of football. We all know this. Teams just really got a lot of teams got shellacked. Obviously, Saquon Barkley, just to name another guy. When was he picked, Evan, in your draft?
Saquon, I think, was picked in the 2nd round, actually.
See, isn't that
crazy?
That crazy? That's too much of a drop for a guy that, yes, he's coming off an injury. Yes, the Giants are kind of floundering out there in no man's land, but he really is the guy there that's going to pick up the slack, and he's going to get the rock.
Yeah, he was picked pretty late last night, which to me wasn't surprising. Although I thought one of the guys who isn't really experienced drafting would have taken him in the 1st round, but he dropped pretty far, and that wasn't a surprise to me given his injury, and of course it's the Giants. I mean, he's
a top 10. Does everybody agree top 10 back though in fantasy this year? Top 10.
Yeah.
I think
it's also their division. Like, what real good run defenses are you going against besides Washington, right?
Yeah.
So it really opens him up for a lot of production. And as soon as Daniel Jones starts to flounder, I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to give it to him. So
yeah.
Yep.
All right. So we got some news, I think yesterday, that Kyle Shanahan has really not made a decision yet about who's going to start in San Francisco because of Trey Lance and his play in the past couple of games. Is Jimmy G's last days in San Francisco upon us? Do you think Shanahan's going to maybe ride with the rookie and start Trey Lance week 1, or is he going to go with Jimmy Garoppolo?
I think he's still going to go with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think it's really funny because even after they drafted Trey Lance, this whole offseason, everything they've seen, he's stood by the fact that Jimmy G will be their starting quarterback, and not to get it twisted. Now he's like, nothing has really changed, but I'm not naming a starter. I'm like, all right, well, if nothing's changed, then Jimmy G is still your starter.
Before we move on from this, who is Drew, and And this isn't a baseball show, Drew.
Money line.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Let's put some money on it. Anyways.
I played the fifth. I'm not getting in the middle.
Good. It would end badly for you. Kaylee, do you think Shanahan is just playing coy about this? Is this kind of a misdirection with the news, or maybe he's really got a quarterback conundrum about who to start in week 1?
Well, I think we'll know in their next game, because I think it's really hard to evaluate Jimmy Garoppolo because he's playing so little, right? Which a lot of these starting guys are. When you're assuming that they're going to be the starting guy week 1, you're going to put them out there for a series and then call it a day, wrap it up. And they're not all having these phenomenal series. I mean, we know that it's preseason, but I don't see him making that switch week 1. Now, again, this is a team that is, we'll talk about the Bears, obviously, but this is a team in a whole different situation, right? Like not too long ago, they were in the Super Bowl. They still have a lot of those guys, and they got some guys back from injury last year. And they still have a lot of these core guys that were on that Super Bowl team. So they're looking for the fast fix. How do we get back there while we still have this core group of guys that can get us there, right? Like that talent that still is retained on our roster. So I have a feeling they are going to play it safe and start Jimmy G week 1 regardless. And I think only unless it starts going downhill very quickly will they make that switch early. But I mean, it's tough because their division's tough. So I think we might see that switch.
Toughest division in football.
Right. Yeah. It's going to come early if it comes. But yeah, I just don't see him making it because, like you said, he was like, nothing's really changed. And I don't feel like we might see it in practice where there's a quarterback battle, but I feel like we're not seeing it translated onto the preseason field in a way where they're really trying to evaluate both quarterbacks in game situations. So I feel like he's going to go with Jimmy.
It's the safe play, but why did you move up in the draft? Why did you give up why'd you give up that much capital? Jimmy G also this year, salary wise, I think he's making $25 million. You're going to give a guy that much loot and you're going to sit him? That would be stupid. So Trey Lance is going to have to play his way above Jimmy G, which I think he's going to. I don't think there's any doubt, obviously, what you're looking at. Or that salary really doesn't become – I don't think it goes on the books until the start of the season. If I was the Niners, why not restructure, maybe get some loot back and see if – I still think you should trade him. I still want him to be gone somewhere else, get another team a quarterback, or at least lessen the blow of what you're paying. How can you pay a guy almost $25 million and have him carry a clipboard? That would be the most expensive Gatorade maker's salary in the NFL, dude.
But who are you going to get at this point? Like, that's the thing is if they are going in that mindset, of, here's our opportunity to get back to the Super Bowl, which I just assume they're operating under that mindset because that's what everyone's kind of assuming at this point. But who are you going to get right now that's going to be cheaper significantly and come with that experience, that playoff experience, Super Bowl experience? And then if you force Trey Lance into that situation, if something were to happen, I mean, then who are you stuck with, right? And I think this is very much kind of what not really, because Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't necessarily Jimmy Garoppolo and vice versa, but this is a lot of the situation we saw last year in Miami where it was a lot of uncertainty. It was a lot of back and forth, and it was trying to figure out, what's the right move for this week. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see in San Francisco, just because they are really in a short-term mindset, not how do we rebuild down the road, which I think is a little more, I guess, representative of what the Bears are dealing with.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Bears, the Red Rifle himself made some comments last week about being his time. Andy Dalton came out in a press conference, believe it was Saturday, saying, like I said before, Justin's going to have his time and Justin's going to have a great career. But right now, it's my time. So my focus is being on the best player I can be for this team and do everything I can help this team to win. Is it really Andy Dalton's time?
No. Absolutely not. Them saying, Matt Nagy coming out and saying, I need to see him in regular season. He has played 144 regular season football games. Like, we have seen him play in 144 games. You know exactly what you're getting with Andy Dalton. He keeps talking about him as if he's a rookie, and that's just not the case. You know exactly what you are going to get with Andy Dalton, and we've seen it in this preseason. And granted, it's preseason, there are a lot of other circumstances, but you can blatantly see that Justin Fields is the better option here. And if you want to put the best option, even with an O-line that might not be up to par, that is how you are going to win games. Justin Fields is going to make that happen for you. Andy Dalton is not. It's ridiculous at this point.
Jordan's coming in with some heat against Andy.
Oh my God.
Dalton.
This triggers me so much.
It triggered me in the complete opposite way.
I gotta hear it.
I got it too.
Not the opposite way, but I just feel like these comments are taken so out of context, which, to be fair, is the job of the media, to take a soundbite or a clip, post it, and get people really angry. But when you listen to the questions that were asked, I feel like it's completely unfair to come into a press conference and ask him, like, how do you feel about, like, Justin Fields hype, and how awkward is that? It's like, well, what do you expect him to say, right? Like, what is he gonna do? You expect him to resign, like step down? Like, he's in a contract. Like, his job is to go out there, do the best he can do in practice, on the field, on game day. And if that's what he's doing, that's all he's supposed to do, right? Like, he's not the GM, he's not the head coach, he's not making the decisions. And I think by him saying it's my time, I don't think he meant like you're too young, like sit on the bench. I think he literally meant like, hey, they're asking me to be the starter. I've been named the starter, so now I have to step up and be the best quarterback I can be, without thinking about who should be under center, right?
I just thought it was funny. Like, he says, it's my time. He's been in the league for what, over 10 years? Like, your time has been like...
You had your time.
You had enough other time. It's got up to you.
I don't think he meant it like that at all. I heard it like it's his time, in the sense that, like, as long as he's number one on the depth chart, like, he has to go out there and act like the starting quarterback. And I feel like asking him to do anything else is so unfair. And to be fair, I'm very, very impressed with Matt Nagy's comments and just everything he said about, like, how you cannot forget he was in that quarter room watching them develop Patrick Mahomes. So let's take a moment and just recognize that Patrick Mahomes played in one game in his first season. And are the Bears going to go to the Super Bowl if Justin Fields is under center this year? Probably not.
No.
So if we look at that and say, let's put him behind a shoddy O-line, let's put him out there just to put him out there and make people, like, quote unquote happy, because can Bears fans really be happy? I don't know.
No.
Like never. And so like, let's throw him back there, maybe get him hurt. And then what does your future look like? You're either playing for this year or you're playing for the next 5 to 10 to 15 potentially years. And I feel like to put him in this year, like, is he the better quarterback? 110%. Is it the smartest move to put him in this year? Probably not. And I respect him for not worrying about saving his job and worrying more about, am I doing the best thing for Justin Fields, for Andy Dalton, and for the Bears, right? Like, that's his job as the head coach. So I feel like everyone's doing their jobs and people just, like, are really upset because, like, we have to be upset over football.
Buck Dad 1 of 1 said in the comments that he'll be replaced by week 3. Do you see week 3 or maybe a little bit later than that for Justin Fields to be on the field as a starter?
I think Andy Dalton, honestly, if we go in a little time capsule and go backwards, this is a guy who went to Dallas, had to play for Dak Prescott. Everybody died on the offensive line. Ezekiel Elliott checked out. He was under fire for, like, got injured. Now he goes in free agency and he's like, I'm going to go be a starter at a team. I can still do this. The Bears are like, come, dude, Chicago, it is yours. Bring it. You come, you get $12 million, and they're go to the draft, pick 11. We're like, Fields, quarterback, bang. And he's like, what am I doing? Am I the last guy at the prom? What the hell? So, I mean, if I'm him, I'm so mad. And you know what? Good for Andy. If he's going to sit up there at the press conference and be like, now's my time, then they're telling me I'm the guy.
My time.
That's right. Be the guy and let it be your time. And when it's not, dude, pack your bags as quick as you packed them to go there and say, thank you very much. I'll go have a seat, please. Give me my $12 million.
His press conference was, he was up there, his arms were crossed, he had the hat on. He was just like, you know, fuck you, Justin. And I'm gonna say some shit right now. It's my time. My time.
Yeah.
All Bears press conferences have been super entertaining recently because the Nick Foles one, where he was basically pleading to like get taken out of Chicago. He's like, Frank Reich, please come get me. Like, I can't be here. I don't want to be a third stringer. Like, they're all so dramatic.
I love these questions so far. We've got some good questions in the comments.
Yeah.
So who is it better? This kind of derails or kind of goes off comment right now, but who's a better option in their second year? Jalen Hurts or Tua? I like that option from Buck Dad 1 of 1.
Tua.
I mean, I think Tua.
Yeah, I think Tua too.
I think that's a Tua sweep. Look what they did. They went and got Waddle. They got a better offensive line. They kind of gave him a lot of things around him to make him a little more comfortable. He knows that it's his room now, so he's not worried about somebody taking his job, and he knows that he's got to, step up and kind of play the role. So that's kind of my take.
After the performance that we saw over the weekend with the Jets and the Eagles, yeah.
You mean
that's all I got to say about that.
Patriots Eagles?
Patriots Eagles.
Yeah, no, that was let's skip over that.
Actually. We are. We're going to move on from that.
But no, I think Tua's definitely in a much better position, and the Eagles clearly are going to be in shambles. So
as long as you have acknowledged that, I think everything will be okay.
Once week 1 starts, though, I'm still going to get super hopeful, and everything's going to be fine.
It's the NFL. Everybody in week 1 can win the Super Bowl. Everybody.
Very true.
Yeah.
That's the mindset.
So COVID has been rampant in the NFL this past few weeks, couple months. We've got some players and coaches being tested positive. Cam Newton today has to be out for 5 days for some miscommunications with some tests. But Mike Vrabel, coach of the Tennessee Titans, was tested positive and basically infecting pretty much everybody on the Buccaneers. No, I'm just kidding. The Bucs and the Titans did have joint practice this past week. Now this kind of puts everybody in the Bucs in risk. I know he was talking to Tom Brady pretty closely. You're infecting my quarterback. He was talking to Bruce Arians for about 5 minutes. Mike Vrabel, patient 0. Could this affect the Bucs going forward if there's a rampant COVID outbreak in Tampa Bay? And should coaches be more aware? If they start to feel sick at practice, I know that, these tests come up positive. Sometimes they're false positives and everything. We're not going to get into all this political stuff about COVID and everything, but will we see more of this as the season goes on with tests coming up positive throughout the year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're going into a season, I think last year, the mentality around COVID was still so new because there were so many things that were nuanced as far as the testing. I mean, remember we had that entire team that got false positives. And so there were a lot of missteps, but there were a lot more precautions in the sense that it was very new. We were still very unaware of a lot of the impacts or how it's transmitted. And now that we know, and now we have variants and all of this, it's like we're going into the season in what feels like a little loose as far as restrictions, as far as taking precautions. And I hate to say, because I don't want it to be like it was last year, but I am very appreciative of the rules around losing game checks and doing things like that, because there were just so many things that happened last year that put other players at risk or caused other players to lose time with their families, which is really important, especially when you can't see them because of COVID. So I feel like it's definitely going to impact any team that they came into contact with, whoever it may be.
Yeah.
But I think the step of saying hey, either, if you're not vaccinated, which again, we're not going to go into all of that, but if you don't follow this protocol, then if you get sick or something happens, your game's forfeited, your game check's gone, all these things, right? Because I think it's important while things can still happen, if you follow all the quote unquote rules, I think it's just being respectful, right? There are ways that you can take precautions. You don't have to be in someone's face after the practices. And it just feels like when I'm watching them, I'm I don't even want to be that close to somebody at Walgreens. Okay. It's just a lot. And when your whole, your game checks and your record depends on it, they just seem like they're getting a little too comfortable.
Last one in the shower's got COVID. Let's go, boys. My conspiracy brain is going because I can see it happening late in the season with playoff implications going where somebody may have test positive, doesn't tell anybody, and then infects a whole other team, and then we have COVID gate going on, like a spy gate and deflate gate. So
Tom Brady would be at the center of that, wouldn't he?
Hey, no, because Tom Brady can't get COVID because he's a vampire.
He drinks the baby blood.
He's
He's a vampire. He eats avocado.
The
ice
robot.
Cream. Yes. Drinks the tears of babies to stay alive.
Oh, God.
That'll never.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, and Kaylee, like you just touched on, I mean, there's a lot of things in place where people are going to be held accountable, obviously, if they're making, poor decisions when it comes to that. And, I hope that doesn't happen because everybody's tried to do a lot, and having football there you go. See,
it's true.
They built that in. That's in there.
It's true.
The TB12 method.
You got to stay inside the TB12 bubble to not.
That's right. Hopefully it doesn't, because football, obviously excited. You hear a lot of the players and the coaches talking about being in a stadium now and being with fans and being surrounded, and how they're excited to be back in front of full stadiums and playing. So football brings everybody together, and I hope it's something that later in the season we don't have to separate again. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think we are in this super messy in between period where we're definitely moving in the right direction in terms of like the actual pandemic itself. But then kind of like Kayla was saying, the rules are very loose, almost as if we are totally back to normal. So I think it is going to create some sort of we've seen it. Players are testing positive, and they tested positive just throughout training camp as well. Like we've seen it come up, especially with how often they're being tested. Yeah. So I think it's definitely going to be a problem, but I'm hoping it's not that big of a problem where, kind of like Evan was saying, like affecting playoff implications and all this kind of stuff. So I'm hoping for the best, but kind of expecting the worst because it could get super messy super quick.
Yeah.
Speaking of super messy, let's go into some fantasy football chat. I had a draft last night. I picked fourth out of a 12-man half-point PPR league. Let me get my draft up, and I want everybody in the comments, and as well as you guys, to critique my team to let me know how bad I did. And yes, you can rip me to shreds. I don't care. I can take it. Boy. So here's my team. I drafted fourth. Okay, let me scroll down. There we go. If you guys can see that. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then there's my bench.
So being there last night, and I kind of laughed.
If you were coherent enough.
Which I was. I laughed because one of the things I think in the beginning we talked about is that running backs are a premium this year. So Evan being 4, he got a chance to get Derrick Henry, which is huge when you can get one of the top 5 backs off the off the board. But I think where you really start to see things kind of go haywire is, like we said, wide receivers. He still had a chance to get a guy like Justin Jefferson, who's got a ton of upside, I think, again this year, even though he won many accolades and broke records as a rookie. I think he's still going to be freaking fantastic. And then Keenan Allen is like Mr. Consistency with fantasy if he's healthy. So I think you have like a high floor as far as the team that you have right here that we're looking at on its worst day. I think you're going to be competitive every time you're playing. Like I don't see like a bad, unless Kyle Pitts completely, takes a right at the left-hand door and just falls out of the world. He might. I'm hoping he doesn't do that because I'm a Falcons fan.
I'm hoping not either. I took him pretty high.
Well, and that was going to be my next thing. That's what I thought. Pitts, obviously, everybody's taking him really early. And this guy's a rookie. I know he could be the second coming of Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates all rolled into one guy, but
I took him because of the volume that he could get, because he's going to be the second option behind Calvin Ridley. I mean, and also the kid's a freak of nature, the size of him. He's just a big dude. He reminds me of like a Megatron-esque type of player, even though he plays tight end. So I'm hoping he pans out. If not, then I'm screwed.
No, I think we all know how weirdly obsessed I am with Kyle Pitts. Any excuse to talk about him, I will take. I think they're going to also use him every once in a while as a wide receiver as well. Like, I think they're going to use him for that dual threat, which we all know he's capable of. So I think it's smart. I'm so high on taking Kyle Pitts in fantasy.
You guys are being nice so far. I thought you guys would be ripping this to shreds, man. Jeez.
I kind of wish I could, but
it's not that bad.
No.
I mean, I thought I did bad because of my running backs. I don't like my running backs at all
the only one I'm not sure of is Melvin Gordon, but you have him in flex. So.
Yeah, I'm in my flex. I took him. I think on the 8th or 9th, I think, because I mean he was still. These guys are just dropping off like flies, and I wanted to get some really top wide receivers and tight ends before everybody scoops them up. So I don't know. Kaylee, what do you think?
I feel like Derrick Henry is obviously phenomenal, but he's a little inconsistent, especially within the division. So I feel like that is a little tough because he'll have, 150 yards one week and then the next week he's got like 25. Right. So, and I also feel like it's going to be interesting to see their offense develop as well, especially now that they have more of a passing game. So I wonder if he's really going to be like the center of that offense the way that he has been. I think obviously the center of their run game, but will they try to push out and become more of a pass heavy team? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I think it would kind of be useful for them given the amount of money and the time that they worked to put together that receiving core. So I would kind of be wary about that being like your go-to guy, and then and then the backups you have aren't like great.
I know they're like average. They're like average at best.
Right. Last year, like any year before this, Derrick Henry is a great guy to have in that spot, but I feel like this year, I don't know, I'm just feeling like that could change.
You and Chip might have been sharing a brain last night because he did bring up that point where it's a brand new offense. That's why they brought in Julio Jones. And I mean, I drafted Ryan Tannehill because I mean he was last year one of the top 5 fantasy quarterbacks going forward in the latter half of the season. So that's why I scooped him up. I scooped him up. What round? I scooped him up pretty
9 or 10, which is good.
Yeah.
You know what I don't? If you scroll down to your bench and just kind of show everybody, I mean, the one guy that I chirped about last night is that it was 15 out of a 16-round draft. Emmanuel Sanders was sitting there, and I think I went on a tirade at the bottom. I'm like, you got a starter on a team.
I should have recorded that. It was amazing.
I was like, you got to.
Nobody's gonna get Emmanuel Sanders. Somebody's gonna get Emmanuel Sanders. If nobody picks Emmanuel Sanders, I'm gonna kill somebody.
I went nuts, and I love that pick. But everybody else, I'm not on the Antonio Brown train. I'm sorry.
No.
Everybody's like, oh God, he's great. No, he's not.
No,
it's not that he's great. It's that Tom Brady is under center, and as long as they're little BFFs, he's gonna get the ball. So like if you can pick him up late, like you might as well if you're not gonna get anyone of substance. But I don't think he's great. I think Tom Brady just is gonna feed him and Gronk the ball regardless of what's going on in the game.
But it's gonna be so random. It's gonna be like whenever he decides, like he'll get a touchdown and make a big play like here and there, but he's not someone I would want on my fantasy team.
See, I'm honestly more trusting getting Antonio Brown late than getting Mike Evans or Chris Godwin early.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you on that.
Well, value, plays a big part in fantasy. And, Antonio Brown is not going to have the same numbers as Chris Godwin and Mike Evans.
No.
And if you think that he is, I think you're silly pants Magoo.
I think he's going to have more touches and more yardage than Chris Godwin.
I agree. And I think that's going to be a reason why Chris Godwin's gone.
We're split 50-50 on this.
Okay.
Look, we saw that start happening last year. That's why I was kind of surprised that Chris Godwin even stayed, because it was kind of like, I don't think he's going to get the play. I think Tom Brady is very much about his guys. And we saw him like try at the beginning of the season with Mike Evans. And as soon as it kind of felt off in the slightest, it was like, Mike Evans, forget him, So I think Tom Brady is just very much about his inner circle and his people, and that's who he's going to make the plays for. I mean, I don't think he's going to go off and be the leading receiver on the team probably, but I do think that he's going to take away from their share. easily, just because Tom Brady likes him.
Yep. You heard it first. Evans, then Brown, then Godwin.
Huh.
We need to clip this off and save this for later because
I
I
was
can
gonna say-
completely disagree.
I want this. This should be the clip of the
Okay.
week. You should
All
clip this
right.
off.
All
Our
right.
clip of the week. That way, if it turns out to be Bupkis, then we can go back to the tape and say you guys.
And we're split 50-50.
We're
Evan and
split
Kaylee versus
50-50.
me and Chip.
That's totally
All right.
All right.
That's totally.
We can.
fine.
We'll clip that one. But yeah, I don't. I saw Pittman was also on that list, which I think Carson Wentz is actually back at practice now, and they're trying to work him back in. Quentin Nelson, the guard who had the same injury, same surgery, same everything, is getting back to practice. But I think that the Colts are going to have to, whoever's quarterbacking them, I think T.Y. Hilton will be the guy, obviously, since the guy who's been there knows the routes. Now, once Wentz comes back, I think Pittman will have a better chance, I think, to get worked into the offense. But, yeah, overall, like I said, dude, I think you did great. You got good value. I think you got the number one. I don't know if you got the number one defense. You get San Francisco?
I got San Fran, yeah.
So they were injured, but they were definitely on a tear before they got injured.
They were picking defenses in like round 5 and 6.
And that was another thing I think I laughed at and started dancing.
Yeah,
on the
I was like,
table.
what do you like? Washington went off early. Like, I think Washington went off in like the 5th or 6th round, and then the Bucks came after that. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, I mean, I know the beer was flowing like wine, but it was just these guys were just making off the wall picks. Like as the drinks were starting to flow even more, they were just making off the wall picks. Like a kicker went off in the 10th round. I think but Harrison Buckner came off in like the 9th round of the draft last night. A kicker in the 9th, and I was like, all right, man, if you want to waste your pick on a kicker, that's cool with me. I mean, more.
Hey, those are the things that I just say. Thank you for giving me one more spot to get a guy that I need. I appreciate it. I'll definitely have a drink with you afterwards.
If you had to grade my draft, what would you give?
I think B plus.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'd say B.
Yeah. I'm in the BB plus range just because on paper right now, it's very good, at least your starters.
Yep.
But it is risky just because, like, you have Pitts, who's the rookie. We don't actually know how he's going to do. You have Justin Jefferson, who's going into his 2nd season after a very impressive rookie season. So you assume he's going to do well. But again, you don't really know. So it's either going to go very, very well, or it could be like middle of the line subpar. So I'm rooting for you.
Yahoo gave me a C minus, because Yahoo grades their drafts. They gave me a C minus. Like, fuck you, Yahoo.
That's kind of harsh, but I will say I feel like that's everyone's roster that I've seen. I feel the same way about, just because this season brings up so many questions, and a lot of those top guys, like we were talking about, the first round is so fuzzy. Like those top 5 or so picks, you're just kind of like, there's upsides and there's major downsides.
Yeah,
for those guys. So every single roster I've seen, I'm like, yeah, this could be great, or this could end absolutely terribly. So I feel like you're not alone.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I think, well, yeah. And Evan, we even noticed the trends. And when you're drafting in fantasy to somebody who's just starting, watch what happens with the picks around you. I think 9 running backs went in Evan's draft. And if you're on the backhand side of the first round, you're going to be able to get maybe 2 of the best wide receivers, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and depending upon your scoring in your draft and in your league, you want to make sure you pay attention to that. So running backs did go quick and fast, and it looks like you're going to have the guys you want, probably before the 5th.
Yep.
That's what it looked like in his draft, at least. So,
all right. So, Chip, you've got a draft on Sunday. I might be having a draft on Saturday. Just depends on when my kid pops out. So, well, no, I have a draft on Saturday, and they pushed my wife being induced to Friday instead of Wednesday.
Yeah.
So now I am in limbo about going to a draft, and my wife is like, "Well, you could still make it if I go before Friday." I'm like,
I love that support.
Yeah,
I know. I was like, "Oh,
it's great." That's what I told him when we hung out. I was like, "That's great."
Or I could kind of weasel it where, hey, the draft is at 5 on Saturday. It's right down the street from the hospital. I could, take a break for a couple hours while you sleep and go to the draft, and then come back, and everything that's okay.
Not miss a beat.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure that out. So, ladies, do you have any drafts coming up?
I have a bunch. I'm in 4 fantasy leagues.
That's way too many.
Yeah, and not
God
a
bless her.
single,
Way too
not
many.
a single draft is booked yet. What? Well, one of them doesn't count. I mean, it counts, but it's a 32-person fantasy league, and it's more just for
Oh,
like
God.
fun. Yeah, I do content. Thank you. I do content creation TikTok for Walter Picks. And
Yes.
there's 32 of us, for one for each NFL team. And we're doing this massive fantasy league, and it's like blown up on TikTok. So it's more just for like what the hell is going to happen with this rather than actual fantasy.
Gotcha.
So do you guys pick like water boys and
Yeah,
sideline
head coaches,
helper, head coach? Do you guys
It's
do
gonna-
that? That's insane.
It's going to be interesting. And I have the 23rd overall pick. So like I don't even know what I
You have to do
at that
so much
point.
research, I feel
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you have to
And, like,
know every player.
No, it's going to be insane. So I'm looking forward to that. But it's definitely going to be interesting.
With the
The other
23rd
one-
pick, Jordan picks Ted, the sideline helper for the Chicago. Like,
Sideline judge.
yeah, geez, the water boy for the team. Jeez, that's
Also, I'm gonna go ahead and call now because Jameis Winston just had a touchdown drive.
Oh.
So there you
Yeah.
go. That's your starter, New Orleans.
There's your boy with his.
Oh, look. Now, Marquez Callaway. That guy's been lighting it up. You can get him in drafts late in the little sleeper action.
Yeah.
Callaway.
Did
Get
they
him as my
show
starter.
Haley? Did they show Jameis like celebrating like he just won the Super Bowl?
I mean, they were all celebrating because it was a pass interference on
Oh,
us, of course. So
I got you.
it was a pass interference in the end zone.
Well, speaking of drafts coming up for everybody, I want to get into a segment called "What is your fantasy flavor?" And what I mean by fantasy flavor, who is the guy that you're really coveting into your drafts? Who is the guy that you really think is Mr. Consistent, Mr. Breakout this year? The guy that you are definitely going to draft no matter what in your upcoming fantasy football draft. So, who is your fantasy flavor for this year? Chip, who is your fantasy flavor?
My fantasy flavor this year, and like I discussed with you guys, having the first pick, I'm kind of iffy, and we're going to continue to talk about this because I think I might change my first round pick, and my draft's next week, not this upcoming weekend, but the weekend after that. So I still got time, but I'm going to go with CMC is going to be my guy. I'm going to be praying about it all year because I have a bad feeling, just like all of us, there could be some trials and tribulations with him. Injuries could pop up. So I'm going to pray he's going to be my guy, but a guy that I love, Corey Davis. If I can get him in any draft down in the lower half of a draft, I'm grabbing him. He looks great. Zach Wilson loves him already. He'll be a target machine. That's who I'm taking. So there you go, Evan.
Well, it's not just me.
My fantasy flavor.
I mean, I know you were trying to get me to draft Corey Davis last night by yelling in my ear like 5,000 times. Like, get Corey Davis!
I didn't
Zach
sound like that. I didn't have a stroke and try to talk to you.
Well, you were like, pick
I
him.
was yelling. I was screaming at you. Yeah.
I know you were like, Zach Wilson loves him very much. So I'm like, no,
That's
leave
right.
me alone. Stop trying to bite my ear, Chip. Leave me alone. Just kidding.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall at this draft.
Oh,
It was a very tame draft from drafts before. It was very
Okay.
fairly tame.
yeah. I didn't drink this time, so that's why it was tame. No, I'm just kidding.
Nice.
Jordan,
The
Kaylee, who is your fantasy flavors this year?
Yeah, my fantasy flavor, and I've talked about this before on here, how I think tight ends are so important this year, especially just because you have kind of like the big three in Kelsey, Kittle, and Darren Waller. And then everyone after them is good, but they're on a totally different level. So it's kind of like that fall off. So in my fantasy draft, the one person that I want, and this is a little bit of a hot take, I think Darren Waller is going to be tight end 1 this season. I just have very high hopes for him. I love everything about him. I love the way everything's looking in that offense. So, and with him especially. So he is the person in all 4 of my fantasy leagues. He is the person that I would go after to have on my offense. I would like to get him 2 stud running backs, and then wide receivers are so deep this season that I feel more comfortable getting them later on. So Darren Waller is my fantasy flavor and someone I want in every single team.
He went to Georgia Tech there, young lady. He's a smart young lad, that one.
I like
He's great. I love him.
That's a good hot take. I like that.
Thank you.
I like that a lot. Kaylee?
I could agree with Darren Waller. Mine is Damian Harris. I think watching the Patriots, I think we are going to see some improvement there. And they have James White, they have Sony Michel, and regardless of what Stevenson has been doing during preseason, I still think Harris is just going to come out as that lead back and really be the guy they rely on, especially with Stevenson coming up and maybe challenging James White, Sony Michel for reps. I think Harris is just going to be that go-to RB1 kind of guy for them that they lean on. Not like a huge go up and get him early, but a guy that I would definitely look for in the mid rounds in each of my leagues, just because I don't know, I just trust him. Like, he's very consistent. He's a guy that is going to give you consistent results. He's not probably going to have any like huge breakout plays or breakout games, but I think you will get consistent games from him week in and week out, especially with kind of what their offense has been doing and what it looks like they're going to be doing this season. So he's going to be my go-to.
I like that as well.
I'm still wondering if
Patriots backfield has always been like murky because they really can't. They don't really choose a number one guy per se, but Harris has been one of the guys that's been kind of standing out the most, especially in practice and then also preseason. I like that. I like Damian Harris. Well, it was one of the guys I was looking at last night, but he got picked before I could grab him. So yeah, that's a good pick. I like that. My guy is Justin Jefferson, a guy that I picked up off waivers last year to fill in for a wide receiver, a guy that I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to take a flyer on this guy for a week, and he just exploded. Set the rookie record last year, 1,400 yards of receiving yards, a guy that I wanted to make sure I took in my draft this past weekend. I did. I'm happy with that pick, a guy that I think he's going to explode and have even bigger numbers this year. Chip, you and I have talked about this before. Adam Thielen is, he's old man River on that team. Justin Jefferson had really slid in nicely after they traded Diggs over to Buffalo, and it was almost like a seamless transition having that guy come in and just – he's a monster. He's so fast. He can just jump over everybody on that team. Justin Jefferson is my fantasy flavor of this year's draft because he is such a absolute talent at wide receiver. And I picked him up in the second round, and I will do it again for another draft, or maybe even if maybe in the third if he drops to the third round. So yeah, Justin Jefferson is my fantasy flavor of this year's draft.
I like it, dude. Bunch of guys mid rounds. We had some sleepers and we had some guys that are supposed to produce. But yeah, closer we get, football's getting closer with every passing week. So getting more excited every single day.
There's one guy I regret taking last night. I know you gave me hell about it too, Chip.
You go ahead, tell him you're right in.
Yeah, it was the write-in. I had to write this guy in.
Wow, you regretted a write-in? That's shocking.
Shocking, yeah.
It was Xavier Jones, who's number 2 on the depth chart on LA behind Darrell Henderson. And I was like,
they got some folks there.
Yeah, I read a couple articles. McVay said I was like, all right, I need some running back. And I was like, all right, screw it. And then they're like, oh yeah, we have to write him in. I'm like, there's no sticker for this guy. Like, no, there's no sticker. I'm like, it's like, really? Now I really regret taking it.
Can you imagine though if you snagged him and he has this like breakout season? Then you'll feel really good about it.
I know. I feel like a genius doing that. And like even though I regret taking him, it's like, yeah, I knew it all along. You have to write him in.
Absolutely.
Now he's like setting rookie records because he's like undrafted, and I grabbed him. You guys had to write him in, so screw you guys. But yeah, I just regret taking him right now. I was about to drop him, but I was like, you know what? Maybe Henderson will get hurt and then he'll slide into the top spot because
you never know.
I know right now isn't the Rams going by committee anyways? Aren't they splitting carries?
I mean, well, you're going to see. I mean, Henderson, they'll probably none of the other players behind him really have. I don't think any NFL experience. I think they're all been special teamers and never in an offensive huddle before. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, could be like you said. Everybody right now, any sleepers you're taking are all good picks. Because the season hasn't started yet. So those guys.
We'll come back in week 6 and see how Xavier Jones is doing, and then I'll see if he's still.
We'll see if he's. Yeah, I was gonna say we'll see if you still have him.
All right, let's get on out of here, guys and girls. Any last words, news and notes before we get on out?
I'm gonna need
No, I'll
more
keep you
time.
updated on my 32-person
Yeah.
I
fantasy
have to
league.
know how that goes.
Yeah, I
Can
will
you-
keep you updated.
Can you live stream that while you're doing that?
I
it's gonna,
could.
it's gonna take a long time before you get your.
I
like,
know. I'll
first
be sitting there
pick.
for like an hour before I get my first pick.
Have you mock draft? Wait, can you even mock draft that?
No, you
On
can't.
Sleeper?
No, there's no 32 team option.
God,
You just
I
have to
thought
go
of-
through rounds after
Yeah.
round. You'll be picking in the third or the fourth round. Third
I
round.
thought a 14-man league was crazy, but like 32? Jesus.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
We'll
Well,
see.
good luck to you, Jordan.
Saints starting quarterback. You heard it here first. Jameis Winston is what we're
Jameis
saying.
Winston.
We'll know by the 28th before their final preseason game.
That's
I
my
know
impersonation of James
I know
Winston.
right now, and I just want to extend a solid "You're welcome" to Jameis Winston. I should have started drinking way earlier for this one because it's already too much.
I'm definitely going to go watch that game and see what the Haps is now. So that's my next step.
Well, we will see everybody on Thursday nights, hopefully. If not, we'll see you next Monday. Make sure to smash the follow button on Twitter at the FU Dogs Pod and also IG at the FU Dogs Pod. We're also now on YouTube and also on Twitch as well. So make sure to go smash that button and subscribe. We would love to have many subscribers. So for myself, Kaylee, Sporty Jordy, and Chip, we will see you guys on the flippity flop. It's been the Fantasy Underdogs Podcast. Peace.
Go
Bye.
Falcons.
Yeah.